We do have dates.
Good morning, Fort McMurray, with Buffalo and the rest of the world. You've tuned in to the Mac City Morning Show. I am your host, Elliot Pierre. We're going to start today's episode off the same way we start every episode off, with a moment of gratitude. I know you could be doing a million other things with your time, and the fact that you spend it with us truly does mean the world to me, so thank you. On that note, Tanner, hit him with the intro. And we are back. As everybody at home knows, I do not introduce my guests because they can do a better job of that than myself. So, sir, can you please tell everybody at home who you are and what you're about?
Hey, I'm Mike Jones. Happy to be back on the show from the Canadian Mental Health Association with Buffalo, marketing and events.
Busiest man in Fort McMurray.
Busy.
The title is
King of Fort McMurray.
King of Fort McMurray.
That's not a self-appointed title, but
No, we appointed that.
I appreciate it.
It happened on this show, and I've been plugging it ever since. We just had Jerry Neville's the voice of Fort McMurray on the show. So today's a pretty good day. I thought it was really kind of cool, and like the four of us were hanging out at like the little perch downstairs, and
ran
just
into
like,
those boys outside. I was
wow,
like,
look at us all hanging out with. This is a pretty good crowd
What are we
right
doing?
now.
What are we doing next? Of course, shop talk starts happening. It's like, all right, we're gonna do some things with the oil barons and lots of stuff happening.
Very cool. So this episode is different from the typical Mac City Morning episodes in regards to this is going to be going out on TELUS STORYHIVE.
Yeah.
So for the people who have not been engaged with you prior to, who may have not seen the other episodes, give a little recap of who you are and like what you really do and why you have that name and that title moniker, King of Fort McMurray.
So yeah, I moved up here in 2013 from Edmonton to start working at radio at Rogers Radio here in town. Worked my way up to be the afternoon guy on Country 93.3 and the music director. Was there for just about 10 years, 8 years, 9 years, something like that. And around COVID, felt like it was time for a change. So, went looking, and the CMHA job popped out as something that was very important to me with mental health and something I could use my skills for good. So I jumped onto that. Still very involved in the media world with Balsam and Your McMurray magazine. I run the YMM Weekly, which goes out twice a week. Best newsletter in town. It's very informative. A lot of work goes into it, but I need it for my own sanity, so I know what's going on, because I like to have the pulse of the community, and I hate being that guy that's just like, what, I missed something last night? Where is everybody? Why didn't nobody invite me?
Have you missed anything in this city?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I've not ever been to an event in this city where you have not been there.
Yeah. If I want to know what's going on in Fort McMurray, like I very rarely...
Those before
like,
2 o'clock events on the weekends are tough. I'm a night owl. I'm a night owl guy, right? So I like to sleep in on Saturday, Sunday when I can.
Yeah. Your stories are how I know what's going on in Fort McMurray. If I'm wondering, like, oh, I wonder what's happening right now, I just go on Mike Jones's stories and I just click. I'm like, oh, that's this. Like, you're literally at
You also
everything.
do on stage.
Yeah, so we have on-stage productions. We do a weekly posting of all of the music events in town, and it's now expanded into a 2-pager, so now we do a lot of the charity events and some of the other non-arts related events as well, because I think those are important too. By no means is it a comprehensive list. I don't know as much about the kids stuff as I'd like to, but whatever I can get out there and whatever I can help promote and plug, I'm just happy to, because I want to see this town succeed.
Yeah.
I want to see businesses busy. I want to see events full. I want to see artists have a full audience. I want to see things thrive.
Yeah. And then we have a poster for one of your events. So you throw a pretty
big party, which I can't tell you anything about yet for this year, even though we do have some stuff in the pocket, such as our headliner that we're going to be announcing in a couple of weeks.
Nice.
But yeah, Rock the Rails will be back. It's 7th year, June 6th and 7th. Last year it snowed.
Yeah, I know. I was there.
Again, June. I think June 7th and 8th last year, and it snowed the morning of, and we had to scramble, and we had to get our good friends at Cahill, United Rentals, all these guys are coming in and scrambling. Lee from Westford was there just getting all these generators hooked up so we could heat the stage and all the equipment required there. And then we just went to Canadian Tire and bought a crap load of tarp and just started tarping the park, because we wanted to still have the competitions, but it was soaking wet from all the snow and the ice, and we just had to melt it. So We had to cancel the competitions the first day, which kind of broke my heart a little bit, but we were able to get it dried off in time for competitions on Saturday, and the kids really sent it this year. It was awesome to see.
Yeah, it was cool to be there. Cold,
Yeah.
but cool.
It was cool, and everybody threw on their hoodies or jackets, boots. The grass was pretty muddy. I know that's obviously a situation that we'll have to look at. Hopefully, June will just have normal June weather this year. It was beautiful the year before, I remember, right?
It was beautiful all of June except for the 2 days.
Except for those 2 days.
Yeah.
It's like, who have I upset?
Yeah.
I am sorry. I must have said something wrong. But but we still had about 3,000 people through the gates on Saturday. So.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah.
Like, even the night that we showed up both nights, but the Friday night,
Yeah.
who would have known? Like, because it was snow, and I was just
Yeah.
like, my whole thing was like, because we do stuff, and like, we want to show support, right? So I was like, man, not a lot of people are going to show up because of the weather.
Yeah.
And then we showed up, and there
better show up.
there was a great crowd, though.
Yeah.
Like, people really, like, believe in you and what you do, and, like,
Yeah.
regardless of that temperature, people are like, no, well...
Yeah, I think the Friday night made me just as happy because, it was a little less than Saturday, but Friday we didn't have any of the competitions going. The BMX team from Hands Up Entertainment was able to do a couple of little shows, and then we had mostly local bands, and Supermodel Taxidermy was headlining, and people showed up to see them, which was great. Just the support. It wasn't just about bringing the kids down for a nice day in the park. It was like, I'm going to go out and support my friends and support my local community. So that meant a lot. And then of course Saturday we bring in the big headliner. We had Authority Zero play, and it was packed for them. But these are, I know I'm not the only person in Fort McMurray that was listening to them in like junior high, and like pretty sure I even had them on cassette at one point. Like they've been around for a while, 30 years, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the energy of punk music too. Is like rain or shine. Like I'm going to rock out.
I've been to colder concerts before.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised. I went to a punk festival in Edmonton this summer, and so
was that the NoFX?
No, this was it was called Purple City something. It was a really interesting concept. Like they had a bunch of different.
Do you know where they
venues.
get the name for Purple City?
No.
Have you ever? Okay, this is something that blows my mind. So this is in Edmonton. I'm going to shift to Edmontonian lore here.
Yeah.
At the Ledge, there is a giant skylight that shines up.
Oh.
So, in Purple City lore, which is horrible, no optometrist is going to recommend you do this. You're supposed to stare at the light for 30 seconds and look out onto the skyline of Edmonton because you can see a beautiful view from the Ledge grounds, and everything turns purple.
Oh.
I don't actually recommend you do it, but it is kind of.
Have you done it?
Yes, I have. It was a rite of passage. It was a rite of passage as an Edmontonian. Anyways, that's where they get the name for that, and it's again, I highly recommend you don't do that. It really is not good for your eyes, but
That's hilarious.
Do not try at home.
Do not try at home, but it was a rite of passage.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Sorry, I
No, I love it.
Side.
But yeah, I went to that festival, and like for EDM music and raves, like because of this guy, like I've jumped in a few mosh pits, and like I can handle myself.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Oh, you should have seen how scared this man was to go in his first mosh pit. He thought somebody was gonna punch him in the face.
Get some of the old crust punks there with their big battle jackets and
That's exactly it. So that's what I thought I was getting into, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, I've been in a few mosh pits now, and I can handle my own. I show up to this festival and there's a punk mosh pit. My Lord, I cannot handle myself in that.
It's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing. I was just like, you know what, boys? I'm out.
Y'all do your thing.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna chill over here in the back.
EDM mosh pits are very light and fluffy, and everybody is kind of just bumping and shoving, and then you get into those punk mosh pits, bro, and there's...
it's still light and fluffy on the outside, really. I mean, it's aggression. You're taking it out, and I think people are usually pretty happy, obviously. Every now and then a drink gets spilled or somebody gets into a little scrap.
Yeah, but if you're going into the mosh...
For the most part, it's love.
And if you're going into a mosh pit with a drink, that's on you.
Yeah,
that's
this
on
is true.
you.
Yeah.
100%.
And I've probably been that guy. You're just like, just not care in the world. But I mean, at that point, you can't get mad. It's like, oh no, my drink. Well,
that's your fault.
Yeah, exactly.
So we were talking about this just briefly outside. You just came back from a trip.
Yeah.
Where did you go? How was it? I saw pictures. Like,
just did a quick little jaunt down to Southern California. Flew into Palm Springs, and my good friends Paige and Corey, local realtors here, local superstars, picked me up. They have an Airbnb down there. They've actually been going there. Corey's mom's been going there since like the beginning of time. She's like, that's just their spot, right? And what a beautiful spot they had this year. They booked it for about a month. They're working from home down there, and it backs onto one of the courses at PGA West, which is actually where they're going to have the American Express Open here in not this weekend but next weekend, which is pretty awesome. So at the time, of course, all the PGA guys are still in Hawaii, but they didn't get to see as many golfers because I think they were really trying to work on making it clean and making sure it's ready to go because this is going to be on TV here in a couple weeks. So literally their back door just like backs out onto that. So that was pretty cool. And then we went into LA and get to caught the Seahawks-Rams game. Have you been to SoFi before?
I've never been.
That is an incredible stadium.
Yeah, it looks wild.
That's might be my new favorite NFL stadium. I appreciated it because they had all the other. We went in about an hour early and they had all the morning games on. There was Eagles game on at the time I wanted to watch.
Yeah.
And they had them all on the ring. It was like our own personal NFL red zone. It was like Boston Pizza on a Sunday, and they had them all out there. So that was really cool. And the Seahawks won, which is great. Corey's a big Seahawks fan. Didn't mean anything. They were already out of the playoffs, but was happy to see a win for them.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the crazy part is we went down on Monday nights. We decided to go down to Malibu, and we ate at Moon Shadows, which was a phenomenal restaurant. It was really highly reviewed, and there was I remember looking at it, and I was like, gee, I don't know if I can afford this place. I looked at the menu, and I was like, well, don't think about the exchange rate. Don't think about it was $50 to $60 a dish US, and I was like, you know what, spoilers, treat yourself. You're here. It's a once-off. Literally, in this case, it turned out to be a once-off. But yes, we ate there, and it was phenomenal. And then flew out of LAX the next morning, and then by the time I got to Calgary, all of a sudden it was there was fires started up in the Palisades, which is kind of right where we were. And anyway, so that restaurant burnt down the next day, and it was we were possibly among the last people to eat there.
Wild.
Which is crazy to think. We were never in any danger because I know when we ate there, I remember putting it in the Google Maps, and it said there's I think it's called a red flag, which is basically like a fire advisory because of the wind. There was no fires at the time, but they projected these crazy winds that were coming in, and they were 80 to 100 miles an hour, right? You got to think the tiniest fire that's going to spread when you get winds like that. How can you even stop that, even with the firefighters, right? That's it's terrifying.
Get out the way.
Yeah, get out the way, exactly. So, but yeah, it does. I guess those warnings are somewhat common down there, and obviously once things actually started on fire, people got out of Dodge pretty quick, and hopefully. But yeah, it's pretty terrifying to have that be as something that could be part of your normal life, right?
Yeah. Well, we went through it here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100% we did, yeah.
I still remember going up Beacon Hill and looking at fire to my right and be like, oh man, and then looking at fire to my left and being
I think Councillor Lucier's house was on fire on the downtown side, and you're and you're like, this isn't good.
No, if the wind shifted, because both trees on both sides of the highway were on
exactly,
fire.
Yeah, that's when we drove through as well.
Rap, and you couldn't go fast. You're just looking at it.
Well, exactly. It was traffic, and I can only imagine LA would be, because I saw that traffic there every day, just gridlock. Even at 4 a.m, I went to the airport. I'm like, this is what people do at 4 a.m. You sit in traffic.
Nuts, different lifestyle. Yeah, we're so spoiled in northern Alberta.
Yeah, where we are a little bit more spaced out up here, right?
Yeah,
so, but I also love the big city life, and it's fun to visit. I don't know if I'd want to live there per se, but to go there for a week, get the lay of the land, and Uber everywhere is pretty cool. But I wouldn't want to drive there. I tell you, holy, those freeways.
Yeah, 20-lane highways?
I'm used to Edmonton and Calgary, and even I've driven in Toronto, Vancouver, and they're okay. Yeah. Some of those cities get a little edgy sometimes, but I tell you, these LA, they don't mess around on that freeway.
No, I've been on those freeways, 20 lanes, 10 on each side.
And no ditch. It's just this far from.
And 30 feet down. It's the biggest road I've ever been on, and I've been in China.
Yeah, they're it's pretty intense down there. So.
Wild. That wasn't your first time there.
No, I'd actually have been a couple times over the last few years, just for some we went to an Oilers game a couple years ago, and then went down. We were more on the Long Beach what was it called? San Pedro was where right at the end of the docks is where NoFX's final concert was back in October, which we went down for. So that was really cool to see.
Nice. Now, in regards to music, because you're a big music guy, like I know you can't tell me who you've got lined up for Rock the Rails, but like, who are you listening to in anticipation for that? Like, are you just listening to bands that have put in requests to come? Like,
yeah, so we're actually just starting that. In fact, that's one of the things on my to-do list for today is to put our band submission form out there into the universe. We usually kind of start from the top and get our headliner locked in so we know what our budget is and how much that's going to cost. And then we kind of work our way down. We got working on a direct support act coming up from potentially the States. And then we're going to put this out in the universe and see who's interested in coming up here. Last year was really cool to listen to all of the submissions. We got, I think, 60 submissions, and we ended up having, I think, 4 of those bands that actually came up and played. So this year we're hoping to have a few more from that list and see if we can get up. But yeah, last year was really cool. We had King Thief was one that really popped out to me. They were great to have. I knew a couple of those guys from some of their side projects or other bands. I guess this might be the side project. And then another band called Die Job was really cool, and they mixed in they had a girl on stage who was playing a cello at the same time, and the harmonies they were doing was crazy, and the one dude was in like full corpse paint on stage, and the rest of the guy wasn't. It was just such a cool like punk rock statement. Anyways, it turns out that guy was from Fort Mac, which I didn't even know.
Sick.
He didn't even mention that in the application. He was born here, hated it, I guess, and just like, Vancouver's more my scene. And he's in Van now. But yeah, it was cool that he got to do that show.
That's so cool. Well, listen, Tanner tapped his phone, so that means it's time for his segment called the Mac City Minute.
All right. Oh yeah, this is always fun.
Tanner, hit him with the Mac City Minute.
Alrighty, question number 1 for you today. What is your favorite story you've reported on in Fort McMurray?
Jeez, I mean, I don't report on stuff. You
write articles.
I was never the news guy per se. Yeah, usually if I get called in, when I got called in the radio world, it was like, something's bad, this person's here, this person's there, we need you to cover this. I got to cover sometimes on election nights, because they'd be like, this person will be at this candidate's, this person will be at this candidate's. So I was there when, was it for mayor? I think I was there for Don Scott when he got mayor, which was pretty cool to see the reaction there at, what was the bar behind Sobeys or Save-On in Thickwood there?
Oh,
Sociables,
yeah.
Minglers.
But I can't remember if it was Sociables
Diesel
yet or
Ultra
something
Lounge.
else. It was still Sociables maybe, yeah.
Sociables?
Anyways, yeah. So I remember that. Actually, here's the story. Was a recent one. We did just do an article, you're right, for Your McMurray magazine, and it was the Northern Lights Christmas album, which Brian Wyatt, that was all his vision. From day one, he's like, I want to make an album. I want to make a Christmas album. I want to press it on vinyl. We're going to donate all the costs to CMHA. We're going to sell hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of copies. And they raised, was it $24,000, $25,000 for CMHA, for Wood Buffalo.
Wow.
And that was just all the musicians volunteering their time. And we had a lot of companies donate prizing for the actual event at the Kickin' Horse, who also donated the venue. Andrew Potty donated basically, like, I mean, I'd imagine these producers make like a decent amount of, they put 100 hours into these albums, right? And he donated his time and his expertise and his patience, because most of the artists he worked with have never been in a studio before, right? It's one thing to know how to play live, but going into a studio, it's a completely different experience. So I got to give him and Brian and everybody all the props. Russell Wilson, or Russell Thomas, not the
Not the quarterback.
No, Russell Thomas came through, donated the art for the album, which was very cool too. So, and yeah, it raised $24,000. So I think that's my favorite story.
Question number 2. What is your favorite memory at a Fort McMurray concert?
At a Fort McMurray concert, there's a lot. Anytime we get to do the Joey D nights are always really special. A nice tribute to Joey. We get to do those. We've started combining it with Rock the Rails the last few years, which is super special. Another favorite moment. I'll go with a recent one because it's the first one that popped into my head. Actually, it's not that recent, but we were talking about the cold thing earlier, and I remember being an outdoor concert at Shell Place in October, and I remember at the time being like, that's a choice. But it was great. Everybody came out. It was John Fogerty who came out with his band, and he played all the CCR hits. I think he did 2.5 hours out there, and they did have like a giant heat thing focused on him because he's like, I mean, he's probably older. He's older now because this was 10 years ago, but he was probably pushing 70.
Yeah.
You got to keep Fogerty warm. He's from the States, right? Like he's not a arctically trained.
Yeah.
So they kept him nice and toasty. And then, but I remember the rest of the band being like, I think they only have the one tube on him, and the rest of the band's like freezing trying to play their guitars. And
Yeah, that's
anyways,
funny.
that was a pretty cool memory.
Question number 3. If you could see any two teams play against each other, what would you want to see?
Well, it's a Super Bowl. It's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles on one side, and then I got to pick an AFC team. I've already seen them play the Chiefs. We lost, so I'm not happy about that. Sorry, Chiefs, you're out. My gut tells me it's going to be the Ravens this year. I'd like to see us play the Bills, because I know a lot of Bills fans that are very passionate. You know, the Bills fans, you see them in Buffalo, they like to put each other through tables. They love the snow. They love the cold. I think Philly and Buffalo fans almost have like a mutual respect for each other because we're both like known as pretty non-welcoming, intimidating places to come. Like, don't get me wrong, we're like welcoming, we're nice people, most of us. But when you go into the opposing stadium or we're in the other jersey, you know, it's like you're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah.
We're gonna chirp you. It's not gonna be like a fight or nothing, but
Yeah.
we're gonna chirp you.
Yeah.
So I think Bills Eagles Super Bowl. That's my answer.
All right, question number 4. What would be your dream 4-band concert?
Oh jeez.
4-band concert.
Yeah, you get 4.
Yeah. I love the pause.
I'm going. You know what? We're going dream here. Like this isn't happening. We're saying in their prime, the Beatles, because I've seen a lot of the bands. The Beatles, the Clash, would be amazing. Leonard Cohen. I know they're not really stylistically going to work, but whatever.
Hey,
I'm just
it's
gonna
your
see it.
dream.
It's my show. It's my dream. And who else haven't I seen that I'd really? You know what? Pink Floyd, The Wall era.
Whoa. Whoa.
That's like an 8-hour, $1 million concert, but you know, it's my dream.
$1 million if you're lucky.
Yeah, I was gonna say
the Beatles alone.
I was thinking for the tickets, not never mind the actual cost of the event. Yeah.
And your final question: if you could live a day as any animal, what animal would you choose?
Alley cat, probably. I don't know. Just free to roam, find its own food. You know, like cats are pretty independent. I like that about them.
Yeah.
Big, and you know, I mean, I guess depends where they are, but I feel like, especially in certain areas, I guess there's places where they're used to cats. It's like, get out of here, get out of here. But I feel like if a cat just shows up here, like you'd probably take it in for a couple of days until it found its way out again, right?
My son would.
For a summer, we had a back deck cat.
It's
Yeah.
just a
It was
bait,
just
right?
a
And
cat
but you know, you're feeding it. You're like, oh, here's some tuna, buddy. You
Oh,
know,
dude, the cat would literally just show up on our back deck, meow, come
Yeah.
hang out for a couple of hours,
Yeah.
meow, and leave. It was just our back deck cat. We just
Yeah.
come and hang out. We loved it.
100%.
Yeah, those have been your 5 questions.
Thank
There
you.
you go. That's
I think I
awesome.
stretched it out a little more, but you know, that's what I do.
And it's called a Mac City Minute
that is
because,
probably 12 minutes.
well, and it's because nothing in Fort McMurray takes a minute. You're like, oh yeah, I'll be there in a minute. And you're at least 15 minutes away, so you nailed it.
That is true.
It's funny for your concert you put all of those old school artists. 'Cause
Yeah.
I've all great picks.
Yeah.
I've also been listening to, I think they're called the Stooges with
Iggy Pop. Yeah.
Iggy Pop's
Yep.
like wild.
Yeah.
When you think about when that album came out,
Mhm.
like if that album dropped right now, it would be fire.
Yeah.
So like,
But in
that
1969 or whatever it was,
must have
was
sounded like the future, man.
everyone's like, what are you guys doing? Like, you know,
Yeah.
the tempos and the speed and the intensity on there, it's like, holy.
Just nuts.
Yeah.
And like when I listen to the Beatles too, I'm just thinking like nobody's making studio albums like that before.
No.
Like music videos weren't like there was no MTV, no Much Music. They were just like
they basically made their own movies. Like they
and then
went
we put them
there.
out.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable.
Beatlemania, like it was
Yeah.
just it allowed them to experiment so much, right?
Yeah.
And the most mind-blowing thing is like that people think of how iconic the Beatles are and how many iconic albums they have, and you compare that to like Spring. It was crazy, the innovation that was happening then. Yeah.
They had this one guy that they met at like a college or something. He was doing some scientific stuff, but whatever equipment he was using were making neat sounds.
Right.
And they were just like,
oh gosh,
bring that with us. We need those sounds.
That would sound great on a record.
Yeah. Crazy. So it's interesting that you go...
The accent was a little crazy. Holy chain Ringo, jeez.
It's crazy to me you went with those old school bands knowing who you are, though.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So your musical tastes are all over the spot.
100%, yeah.
So on a day-to-day, like, if I go into your vehicle and you're just random Spotify playlist, wherever you listen to music, YouTube music, like, what's it sounding like?
Spotify guy, it's gonna be a lot of everything.
Spotify is the way.
There's a lot of punk in there, a lot of hip hop, obviously a lot of Beatles. I'll throw in some Rod Stewart in there. You might even just have like the odd Katy Perry song. It's just a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
I like it all. Don't like not a lot of jazz, I guess. If I'm being specific, there's certain genres that haven't really appealed to me. But anything with some sort of pop sensibility, some kind of tempo, harmony, I'm usually right there for it. So
that's so cool. And
I love that variety though, because it's like searching for it. Because you're like, not feeling that's not the vibe today, but it might be another day. My liked songs on Spotify is like 30,000 or something like that. So. I can only imagine what 15-year-old me trying to burn CDs and getting 20 songs would have thought about that. How I would have 30,000 songs and the world in your pocket. And I know ethically, it sucks because Spotify, the CEOs are making billions and it sucks for the artists. But as a consumer, strictly as a consumer, it's really, really cool to have that access to. But buy albums on vinyl and go to see shows and buy a shirt. Support those artists some other way.
At least to your small favorite artists.
Yeah.
Yeah, like people like the big artists who complain about it.
Yeah, McCartney's probably doing okay.
Yeah, I'm like shut up. You have enough money. But you got 2 minutes left.
Oh, well, that means we're out of time because these episodes have to be on point. So, before I cut you loose, as you know, everybody gets a shameless shout out or plug. So you have the mic, the camera, the lights. Have fun.
All right, I'll run through the list. CMHA, we've got our March Mullets for Mental Health coming up. Charity Jam is on February 28th this year. And Silent Auction, Max Noseworthy's hosting. Lots of great musicians. Rock the Rails is June 6th and 7th. Follow us on social media for our exciting announcements. Headliner is going to be announced here in about 2 weeks, something like that. It's going to be a big one. Balsam, give us a follow. The YMM Weekly, if you don't already subscribe, comes out Tuesday and Friday. All the knowings, all the things you need to know about Fort McMurray are right in there. And I didn't even mention the trivia, but Tipsy Trivia, Fort Mac and area. We're doing trivia 3-4 nights a week, depending on the week. And we're currently looking at some new venues as well to expand. So if you're a venue owner looking for something to fill those slow nights, give me a shout.
There we go. Awesome. Well, Fort McMurray, Wood Buffalo, the rest of the world, that's been another episode of the Mac City Morning Show. From the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for tuning in. Big shout out to Mike Jones for showing up today. Really appreciate you. And everybody at home, thank you very much for tuning in. It means the world to me. Hopefully you're having a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
I said this. That's another Mac City Morning Show done.
It's so ballistic!
Talk about quenching your ugly thirst.
The Mac City Morning Show is all about giving people in this awesome community an opportunity to share their stories. It doesn't matter who you are, a business owner, the head of a non-for-profit, a guy who works out at site, or a stay-at-home mom. Everybody's story is unique and special. And here on the Mac City Morning Show, we want to highlight those awesome, unique stories from this incredible community that we call Fort McMurray, Wood Buffalo.